Hey guys, what's up? It's Stacking Chairs, the youth ministry podcast all about serving in youth ministry, whether it be youth group or youth camp, whatever God has you serving in, that's what we're talking about. I'm one of your hosts, Josh Balhamus. I'm joined by my fellow host and good friend,
Kyle Gray. Josh, it is so good to be here with you today.
It's always good to be here today.
You know what? It is. It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood. And
it's a beautiful day for a neighbor.
Would you be mine?
In fact, we'll even introduce and invite another neighbor.
Yes.
Who is here today to join us.
Which you, if you're watching, because you can watch online, already see his face. Josh, I am actually talking to more and more people that are like, yeah, I watch.
I know, I'm surprised as well.
I watch the podcast.
We appreciate you guys watching the podcast or listening. We like both.
Yeah, we do.
We're content.
What if they played it on YouTube but closed their eyes?
Then it's like listening to the podcast.
Yeah.
Or if you watch it on Spotify, eventually, you can put videos on Spotify.
I didn't know that.
I want to do that eventually.
I know that now.
But I got to figure out how to get it done. We might have to like pay a premium or something.
Josh, who is this wonderful man sitting to your right, my left?
We'll eventually introduce it.
Yeah, eventually.
This is Caleb Cody. Caleb Cody, introduce yourself. Tell us what you do with Word of Life. And then we'll talk a little bit more about what we're going to have you do.
Tell us why you're here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Who do you think you are?
Who's
your daddy and what does he do?
Yeah. I don't know that one.
Really?
Wow.
Is that like
It's from an old movie. Arnold
That's an
Schwarzenegger
Atlanta. That's
says.
an Atlanta thing or a Georgia thing.
No.
No.
But this is an experience. I just want to say, so we're talking about people watching.
Yeah.
I listen to every episode. I've never seen this. And then even sitting in this hot seat right now,
Yeah.
I'm like, this is impressive.
Can you close your eyes? Close your eyes.
Does it feel?
No, because then I was going to say, does it feel like
you're
hey,
listening
it's
to the
so good to
episode?
have our guests here.
And I
Wow.
didn't expect you're doing live production with the music and stuff.
man.
So I thought that
Yeah.
was all post, but I hear the music come in. I'm like,
Listen,
okay, this is happening.
This is a legit operation.
You expected it to be.
I'm so glad that finally Caleb could give his stamp of approval on it.
I'm so excited. Would you just introduce yourself?
Please.
Already?
Yeah,
My
sorry.
goodness.
Okay, so I'm Caleb Cody. I've been a missionary with Word of Life Youth Ministries for about 7 years, and just recently transitioned to a new role and working in partnership, I guess you could say, with our marketing department, but working directly with youth ministries as a marketing manager. So
Nice.
It's exciting.
It's exciting.
I don't know why I'm reacting like I'm finding this
like
out.
we don't know this already.
This is great. And then I already know this. No, Caleb, for how many years were you a missionary?
7 years. I've been on staff as a missionary.
And you were predominantly in the Atlanta, kind of Georgia extended area of that. And we've had a couple missionaries with local church ministries, or now known as youth ministries, on the team. But Caleb, you're kind of trying to take a broader approach. Instead of just meeting with a handful of churches in your area, you're really trying to take a broader approach and help churches to connect all over within and outside of the United States. Correct? Am I understanding your role correct?
Kind of the heartbeat behind creating this new role is just really some focused effort in reaching more churches through clear messaging, because what we do so much as an organization, Word of Life, and then even specifically within youth ministries, all of our missionaries helping churches and training leaders. There's a lot to it, and so having a clear message that people can understand and kind of digest and kind of have this clear, that's what Word of Life does. That's really the heartbeat behind my new role.
Yeah.
So really, and you've said this word 2 or 3 different times, but it's building a place of community. Both, I said 2 or 3 different. I don't think you've said it since we've been online, but been live. But just the importance of having community. It's crazy. We are connected more than ever here.
Yeah.
Right.
But you actually would argue we are seeing less community.
Like by using phones and stuff like that, you're saying?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you want to help to create a better community.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely a part of what we're trying to do, and I think that's the kind of exciting announcement that you guys have been alluding to.
Let's go ahead and
here and there.
Take that smooth transition.
Smooth. Well, Josh, to pause for a second.
Yeah.
I think we saw a shift in the world when everything shut down during COVID.
Oh yeah.
Like my local church that I attend is a larger church. And I remember my wife and I just going, man, we just don't feel connected here like we did at our church out in Texas. And somebody said to us, well, are you involved in a community group? And I was like, well, no, but none of these people were. And I gave all the excuses I could. They said, no, you won't be involved until you're engaged in what's going on. And so we got involved in a class. And for the next 4 years, man, we loved on those people. They loved on us. It was awesome. And then 2020 hit and we said, okay, let's move our group to do like a Zoom thing. Yeah. And one by one, people fell off the map. And then when we came back, we had actually stopped. They stopped doing the Zoom, kind of meeting because it was just so hard, which I'm going, what else are people doing?
Yeah.
Right.
And yet me too. There were times I was like, I can't get on, today or for whatever reason.
There was a time where we were all scared about not being able to get toilet paper. Do you remember that happening? Yeah. It feels like a fever dream.
Yeah.
It feels like so much longer than it actually was too.
Yeah.
When that happened.
It was almost 3 years ago already.
I know. And that's with what you just brought up about kind of how your story of plugging in and then it going to Zoom. For us, it was kind of the opposite. It was everything was happening on Zoom and stuff, and then it went to nothing. And during that time, we didn't really get plugged into the online stuff, and we got to a point where we were fed up with nothing, and we were like, "What are we doing?" In our church, And my wife and I were at a place where we were just in desperate need of community. And side note, all of us are in desperate need of community. We
Absolutely
created as social beings, right? Yeah. So whether you know it now or not, I mean, that's what your heart craves, community. Yeah. And I had a wise friend tell me, I was kind of venting about all this, like, man, I'm disappointed in our church and kind of like we've put everything on pause, and he just says, hey, be what you want, man. And so we invited just like 2 other couples. Yeah. Hey, we're going to start doing a small group in our house,
Start with the man in the mirror.
You set 6 feet apart though, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, good.
6 to 8 feet.
6 to 8 feet.
Like that.
Double mask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Long story short, it's just a testament of God's goodness. Like that community is now regularly every week about 20 people, about 10 couples in our church.
That's awesome.
And that's our family, man.
Well,
That is our family.
That's the crazy thing to me is how quickly it felt like, well, and let me pose to you 2 different options. It either option number 1, how quickly that hardship dissolved the community that was there, or, and I don't think we like this question, but if it dissolved that quickly, was the real community actually there, or were we just a group of people that showed up at the same place at the same time?
Well, water erodes everything over time, and that's kind of what COVID was. It was just a big swath of water came through and just eroded all of the loosely built sand.
Or did it brush away the stuff to show what was really there?
That's my point. It's like you're left with just whatever's solid that washes away all that sand and dirt.
I was just talking to a friend about this very thing, and maybe this is kind of what you're getting at, Kyle, is my buddy was telling me, every group, every community is going to be oriented towards something, right? And if that orientation is anything less than, something that is eternal, okay, so the Word of God and the souls of men and women, like really pouring in to that, but really being oriented around God's Word and more than just a social event, then that over time that will show, right?
Yeah. And we've talked about on this show a ton about the importance of community, but I don't think we've really kind of dug in on what's that look like for especially people in youth ministry. We've said before on this show, people in youth ministry are some of the loneliest people because if they don't build that community. And so I guess the first question we have for ourselves is, we talked about the importance, but how do you find a community within like a youth ministry? I mean, we have answers within Word of Life, but I mean, I look at we're in Pasco County in Florida. In Pasco County, how many of the youth leaders connect with one another? Now I know Matt, who I work with.
Oh my goodness, Matt. Matt's the buzzword.
You've listened before, so Matt Noble is the youth pastor that I work with at our church. And one thing I've always appreciated about him is we'll go to an event with another church or we'll have another church come in and he knows all these youth pastors in the area because he's been very intentional about going out and meeting them. And so I get introduced to people every time. Then he said, this is a guy who, I've worked with him here. Maybe we went to Trinity College together. We've done that. And he can introduce me to people because he's built community here. And that's a huge impact to me because the community that I've built here has been within my local church. And I've built a little bit with some of the youth pastors that he's connected me with, but I haven't been as near as intentional as he's been to go out and meet those people.
Well, and I think we win at what we're focusing on.
Sure.
And so if you're not going to, community doesn't just happen.
No.
And again,
you can blame your church all you want, but
right. And here's the exact case in point. How many years have you lived in your neighborhood and you don't know your neighbors because you didn't take the time to walk across? Yeah. Well, they need to come to me.
Yeah,
well, no. If it's important to you, you're going to focus on it. And when you focus on it, it's going to create it.
No, I'm literally, actually, Dylan and I just hung out the other day, came over to my house, and I put him right to work because my neighbor's irrigation system, we've been working on it. And so Dylan and I worked for 3 hours the other day on my neighbor's irrigation system. But I know my neighbors, and we can build a relationship. I can share the gospel with them then. But that same thing is true about building community with other youth leaders, other people who are in that same ministry, that same, the spiritual battles that you're in. You can come alongside each other then.
Right.
And so just like meeting my neighbors,
But that's where again, what's so sad is, and is a harsh reality, there are groups out there, there are youth groups, there are churches that may even have a large leadership team, but those people, just because they show up and are there, they're not engaged in they don't feel like they have community.
They might not even have an internal community in the church. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah. Well, okay. Case in point, how many times have we watched a marriage after the kids leave? They break up. Why? Because their community was with their kids. And when you remove those community people, there's no community left.
Yeah.
So now you got to ask yourself your question. Okay, why are we losing leaders as each class has graduated? Well, probably because we're more dedicated and connected to the kids than us as leaders.
Yeah. The Christian school that I went to growing up was like that. A lot of teachers and a lot of people who worked there would leave the school when their kids left the school.
Yeah.
Because they're there because, I get to work with my kids. I mean, I know a lot of people who are like that, even in teaching in general, like public schools and stuff, they leave when their kids leave.
Yeah.
Well, and that's
which I understand, but it's a similar, I'm not saying that that's a problem. That's not a bad thing. I'm just saying that's a similar kind of vein.
And I'll talk to youth pastors over the summertime, and I'll say, listen, I know you got some parents that showed up.
Yeah.
Some of them showed up and started being involved in youth group because their kids were there. So that's not always a bad thing.
No, I'm not saying that. Yeah.
It's when those people can see past it and get, but you're absolutely right. It's so how many times does a youth pastor think his job is connecting with the kids when really, I think if we would argue, his bigger ministry is connecting with the leaders who are connecting with the kids.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know if I would, I think I get what you're saying, but I don't know if I'd say it's the bigger. I'd say they're equal. And if you give up one, you lose the other. So if you're not focusing on the kids enough, you're going to, your leaders will lose their passion and their intentionality because they don't see you working on it. But if you don't interact with your leaders, then they're not going to catch the passion and vision of you interacting with the kids.
Well, but this is where I would sit on the other side of the table. I don't think it's a 50-50 split.
Okay.
And look at you. You are on the other side of the table.
Yeah,
we've said that before. Yeah, we've done Nice.
Good job, guys.
So Caleb, what's your thought? I know Josh and I just kind of went back and forth.
Sure.
You're just sitting there.
Oh, yeah.
You're like ping pong.
Hey, no, I'm kidding.
Caleb, how have you seen this go well? How and what's your heartbeat on exactly what we're talking about?
Yeah, the subject of community, specifically with, I think of youth pastors, youth leaders, and to your point, Josh, what you just said about, you're not sure if you would say it's more important. I would push it a little bit further and say, like, if you had to pick one, like if a youth pastor has to pick, okay, do I spend all my time with my students or my leaders? Man, especially you think of like if you have 50 students or even 25 students, I mean, it's naturally going to happen. You're going to be closer with some than others, but the way you can guarantee that close relationships are being built is if you're pouring into your leaders.
No, that's a good point.
And so we've talked about, it's pretty much bolstering up the point Kyle's getting at. So
I think as long as you split it that way, if you say it's all or the other, I definitely see the benefit.
You can't.
No, you can't do that.
Yeah. Right. A youth pastor is naturally going to connect with some of the students and stuff.
No,
but if that's their sole focus, what?
No, I think it's true.
He was looking at me.
I was looking at Josh. No. And by the way, if you're watching, then you just saw the weird face.
You see all this happening.
Yeah, I need to go back and watch.
No, it's crazy. It's, again, because logically think about it. You sit down with a youth guy or you sit down with somebody going into youth. Why are you going to youth? I love working with youth.
Yeah.
Why are you going to youth? I love working with adult leaders. Well, then you probably should be over here in our discipleship ministry.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
You need to be an administrator as well.
Yeah. So.
A leader. Yeah. That's interesting.
And so to the point of community and just really what I think of is just encouraging one another. I'm thinking of a youth pastor friend of mine right now that he's a younger guy. He's probably 24, 25 years old.
Okay.
He's been a youth pastor for 2.5 years.
Oh, wow.
But he has truly embraced the idea of, first of all, pouring into his leaders and making that a priority. Not that he's not spending intentional time with students as well, but that's a priority. He's like, I know I need to, pour into my leaders and build a community there, but then also for himself to have community outside of that so he can be encouraged, right?
Yeah.
And that's the tricky thing with church ministry is you want the community and you need that. You need community in your local church, right?
Yeah.
But especially if you're serving, it's really healthy to have some outside voices of encouragement as well, because they're going to see things differently and be able to give you advice that maybe you're blind to, or because of the church, dare I say, like politics and dynamic there, things like that. And so I think there's a balance of like, you need community within your local body, but then it's also, and I know kind of where we're going with this our announcement and stuff, but the importance of hearing from people outside too, that may be walking similar paths and share some insight with you. I think that is just super, super valuable to have.
No, I agree.
I know I've benefited from it in my life. I've been, there've been times in my life where I felt like everyone I could turn to get advice, they were all close friends that I served with in Word of Life. And I just needed an outside voice. Right. And God can really use that to add clarity to,
and again,
things.
if I've watched it, not in every scenario, not every situation. I know some of you are going to email because so many of you are emailing and making comments and stuff, which by the way, please continue to do that. But
we'll have another thing they can do soon.
But let me say this is
He's teasing him.
I've watched sometimes you have a youth pastor that wants to do it all.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sure.
But what happens when he gets sick?
Yeah.
Or what happens when he moves on, which is possible? Or what happens when he's just, man, I could just use some help. And there are sometimes I will talk to guys that want to do it all, don't let anybody else do anything, and then complain about the fact that nobody's there to help them out. And I'm like, you want to talk to the person that's a problem? They're in the bathroom mirror. Go talk to them.
Yeah.
But again, you actually can minister to more students when you're not the only one ministering to those students.
Yeah, agreed.
And again, just having a place of community and interaction and yes, when you invite these other leaders in and you invite their voice to the table, you're going to have people that are going to disagree with you. You're going to have people that are not going to see it the same way that you do. And that's awesome. That's good.
We've talked about that too. That is
But
good.
I've actually talked to different guys that are like, well, that's why I bring youth kids on. And I go, yeah, but that's still control.
Yeah.
That's still not.
You make a really good point.
Thank you.
And there's kind of two, we're having two conversations, one about this importance of pouring into a leadership team and then community. And those go hand in hand.
Yeah, they do internally.
Correct. But man, while we're on it, I mean, such a great point. Imagine the youth pastor who says, I'm just going to pour into my students, neglects to build a team and pour into a team.
Yeah.
And to your point, Kyle, he's gone in 2 years. That's a tragedy.
Yeah.
But beyond that, let's say the youth group, and you would argue a youth group might not grow if there's not a strong leadership team.
Yeah.
But let's say that just the sheer size gets away. That youth pastor, again, they're never going to be able to effectively disciple
All of
20
those
kids
guys. Yeah,
or even 10 kids, I would argue. Jesus himself only had 12, right? We've talked about that.
And one of them fell away.
Exactly. But then he had three, Peter, James, and John. And that for me, I think that's naturally a youth pastor can connect with some students. But man, just the importance of having a leadership team that you're pouring into. And let's just be real, right? Like that's not easy. Dealing with people and pouring into people. And I know, again, I can think of several youth pastors right now. They're in their 20s. They have leaders who are 40s, 50s, and there's an intimidation factor there too of how do you lead people that are older than you and stuff. Yeah. But man, this is important. I think that is even more to the point of having an outside encouraging community, a voice, a place that can be safe for you of, hey, I'm trying to lead this team of guys, they're all older than me. What do I do? You know?
Man, wouldn't it be great if there was a place that we could
getting
go?
Getting ahead of yourselves. I want to announce it at the end.
I thought you had a lunch appointment.
No, I know. Give me one more moment.
Okay, go.
I want to talk about. So we've talked about the internal a lot. What are some practical ways if you don't have a community that you've built up? Let's say you just moved to a new area. You're a youth pastor. You got this job at a church. You don't know anybody in the area. How do you go and find people practically? Popped right into that. Find people practically in your community. Like, and this also ties into the announcement we're going to give. But I mean, like, your region, like in that area. Like, how do you go find other youth pastors? What do you do? Like, Matt grew up, I mean, he went to college in Trinity. He went and like connected with these guys at other churches where he like worked before. And so they all went off and did their ministries. So he's built these communities that way. And then he also is very intentional. But like, do you just call up a church and say like, hey, who's your youth pastor? I want to be their friend. You know?
So when I was in Texas,
Yeah.
and I think you probably did this when you were on the local church ministries, youth ministries club side. But I just researched the churches that are around in my area. I started with churches that I felt like I was going to most easily connect with.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I would just show up and I would just say, hey man, can I take you out for a cup of coffee? Maybe not right then and there.
Sure.
You know, although my favorite is there was one time I went to go meet a youth pastor and I knew the pastor and the pastor was like, oh, hey, come by the office. Can you come by the office today?
Yeah.
And so I showed up. I was like, yeah. And he walks over and he goes, hey, Josh, this is the guy that's taking you to lunch today. And I was like, oh, okay, awesome.
That's funny.
Meet your new friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually the guy's name was Josh. It wasn't
Oh,
just,
nice.
yeah.
I thought you were just saying my name for it.
But you know, that's what I did was I
Yeah.
just went around and I just tried to connect with guys. And,
Yeah.
and there were some of them I found out very quickly they were not interested in connecting. And,
Yeah.
and that was
Right.
okay. Everybody,
you won't find out unless you're
it's
intentional.
hard for me, but everybody doesn't want to be my friend.
I want to be your friend.
Thank you, Josh. Anybody else?
Yeah. You are my friend.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah. Josh wants to be your friend. I am your friend. Yeah.
Well, that's
You
why
guys-
we
I
keep,
hear
that's
it
why we
every
keep
week.
hanging out.
You're working
we
it
are
out. I
bit
get
by
it.
bit.
On it.
Listen, we're definitely friends because if we can fight and still hang out,
We've talked about that on the show
friends.
before too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but so that's what I did, and then also the old adage just constantly sticks in my head. You want a friend? Go be a friend.
Right. Be what you want. That's what my buddy told me with
yeah.
the small group, right?
No.
And so that's exactly what Kyle's saying he
Yeah.
did. And to your point, the question, especially a guy who's new to an area,
Yeah.
you might think, okay, I need to find something. And probably there's a high chance that there's
Yeah.
something close by already, there.
Yeah.
I think that will naturally come up. I think you'll find
Yeah.
that. But in the meantime, don't just wait around.
No.
Go be what you want. So if you want
Yeah.
community, go love on people.
Yep.
And I forget what book it was. I was reading a book in the past couple of years. Pretty much the idea was you'll be surprised at how many people you end up liking if you'll love them first.
Yeah, I like that.
And I think that is vital when we're talking about community.
Yeah.
I think of our small group that we have so many dear friends that are like family right now.
Yeah.
And we love them. Some of them, man, when I first met them, I was like, I don't know if I can like them. Like, there's people you click with. There's
Yep.
people that you have similarities with. And then there's people that you're like, yeah,
Yeah.
I wouldn't find you out, in
Yeah.
a room to strike up a conversation. But
Sure.
the idea, and I think if we're living out Christ-like love to
Yeah.
people in community, we start with love, and the whole idea of liking people or having similarities that will come.
Yeah, I agree. And I think if there's one like big takeaway is I don't often say, like we say, hey, go out of your comfort zone, but I'm not like a big proponent of like, hey, if it's far outside your comfort zone and it's not important, like you can just live inside your comfort zone in that area a little bit. I'm a proponent of that sometimes, but this is one of those things where I'm saying, if it's outside of your comfort zone to go and like be intentional to meet new people and go and do those things and like go out of your comfort zone to like be around people and do that. I think this is one of those situations that if you're not in a community, it's not going to find you. You need to go out of your comfort zone. I don't say that very often. Sometimes I can say, oh, there's ways to find it. Hey, if you're an introvert, there's ways to find things to do other things. I think that's okay.
Right.
This is one of those that I'm saying, like, I think you need to go and find those things. And if you're not willing to go and find those things, then be willing to go and find those things.
And at that point, the only thing between you and community, you and that heartfelt, like, you need closeness.
Yeah.
The only thing between you and that is you at that point, right?
No, that's what I'm saying.
So
Just you need to check your balances.
Dietrich Bonhoeffer in his book Life Together, which I highly recommend.
Sure.
He said
love
this:
Bonhoeffer?
the person who loves their dream of community will destroy community, but the person who loves those around them will create community.
Wow.
And again, it's not going, all right, I've got this vision. Because that's expecting you to adhere to so let me be a little dicey.
Do it.
Sometimes youth pastors, and I've done this even as I'm currently being a youth pastor, but I've watched other guys. Sometimes they have their ideal of what their leadership team should look like.
Right.
And they end up destroying their leadership team because they don't allow their people to to create what that looks like. I'm not saying that you shouldn't say, man, it'd be really nice to have somebody who's this type. It'd really be, I'm not a big games guy, so that's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying your community and that interaction, love those people, get to know those people rather than trying to create them to be what you want them to.
Yeah. How many times, Kyle, have you heard something along the lines, and I know because you started out with Word of Life as an area missionary. I've been an area missionary. How many times have you heard something along the lines of like, well, I just don't have the right leaders.
No, all the time. And 75 million.
And so, so we've both heard that a lot. How many times have you thought, I know I have thought to myself, like, man, you just need to go start loving on some people. Yeah. You need to put yourself out there instead of hoping, and I can relate. This is personal. Like a few years ago, that's where me and my wife were of like, you almost get in this, woe is me. Like I have no community and all this. But honestly, how many times have you heard youth pastors that we love, that we want to see just grow and have a great ministry, but the only thing keeping them is really just that extra, they need another nudge.
Well, and let me actually take it to the next step. And I would even say this, there are a lot of guys that they don't bring on that young leader who could play guitar just as good as them, or maybe not as good as them, or maybe even better than them, but because they want to be the guy that's up playing the guitar because, well, this is my role. This is what I do. Well, maybe you allow somebody else to step in the role that you can do so you can fulfill the role that isn't being fulfilled because you know that that's the role that needs to be fulfilled.
Yeah. Right. Yep.
But again, when I go, nope, this is my thing. Yep. It's the same thing that we've been talking about with churches of you don't have to be the one that preaches the gospel every week.
Yeah.
You don't have to be that. Allow that other leader or allow that student to be the quarterback. You be the coach on the side.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's creating that thing. But I'm telling you, there are more times than not that I watch guys go, I just don't have this, therefore I can't do this. But they are their own and biggest limiting factor.
Sure. Yeah. No, absolutely. Yep. Well, so we're going to take this time. We're not going to do small group today. Instead, we're going to give you guys a little bit of an announcement based on this that's why we had this community conversation.
And so now, guys, it's time for announcements.
Oh, so no sweet music there.
Do you want the sweet music for the announcement?
I mean, then your podcast is going to end like with Kyle talking.
So time for announcements. There we go. Announcements is a time where we take something that's cool, something that we really want to share with you, and announce it.
Yeah. We tell you something. You may know about it or have an idea about it, but we just want to bring it to your attention.
It's announcements. Anyway, so for announcements today, this is a funny bit. We should do this.
Listen, I'm telling you, I love it.
We're going to get new music. We're going to do announcements every week.
You guys just saw or heard something brand new.
Well, they do announcements at the end of youth group. We should do an announcements time. Anyway, so we have an announcement. We have been working with Caleb here to launch a Stacking Chairs community Facebook group. So ever since the beginning of Stacking Chairs, we've always talked about how we wanted it to be a community, a place for people to come together, share ideas, share resources, and just talk. And so we were like, hey, you know what? Let's add a resource where we can take people. It's a both and. It's something from Word of Life, and Stacking Chairs is from Word of Life. So we want to take those two communities and we want to put them together. Whether you're using curriculum or you're not using curriculum, it's a place to say, hey, Word of Life curriculum is doing this for me. I wish it would do this for me. It's a place where you can come in and say, hey, does anyone have any really good youth group games? Or hey, this really cool thing happened. We want to share it. We want it to be a place for the podcast, a place for people who are using Word of Life curriculum, people who aren't using either of those things to come together and talk about what God is doing in their youth ministry.
Well, and so there's something that we see, I think it's very exciting that we see happen every summer, every week at summer camp, every weekend at winter camp, where I encourage churches, listen, don't just hang out with your leaders. Sit across the table from somebody, because sometimes it's so refreshing to go, we're not the only ones that are dealing with this problem.
Right. So nice.
And so again, we want to have a community. We want to have a spot where, and let me say this, there may be some people on that community space that you might not exactly 100% align with theologically. That's okay.
Oh, yeah.
I think we're all going to sit down and have Bible 101 when we get to heaven with Jesus,
amen.
okay?
Yeah.
And so again, let's make sure that we're keeping the main thing, and let's have a place of community instead of let's automatically step in and go, okay, how can I figure out all the differences I have with these people? Instead of going, man, how can I figure out these ways that these people who might say something different than me, may communicate it in a different way, have the same heartbeat and can help me be better.
Yes. And so obviously it's a group centered around gospel, discipleship. I mean, those are things that we don't bend on. We're going to be across the aisle with everybody as long as we all agree on those fundamentals of the gospel.
Yeah.
And we'll see that.
If Josh and I can sit on the opposite sides of the table, you guys can sit on opposite sides.
Absolutely.
Right on. I think it's going to be a lot of really what this conversation's been, right?
Yeah.
Where it's, hey, what about this? What about that? Like having other thoughts being, you know, instead of just your own, like, and asking, hey guys, I'm going through this.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? Whether it's something like, I need some game ideas, or something that's carrying a lot more weight that you're struggling with, you know, you just need some encouragement.
I had a guy, so I connected with an old friend, or an older friend, out in Texas a week ago, and I just shared with him, hey, here's something I'm going through. And he literally sat on the other side of the table and started to cry. And I was like, wow, he's really feeling it for me. And he goes, dude, I'm going through the same exact thing. I said, oh, okay. He goes, and I literally sat there yesterday and I talked to my wife, and my wife said, you need to talk to somebody. And he goes, who else is going through this?
Yeah.
He's like, now I know out of all the billions of people in the world, other people are going, but in my community, who else is going through this? So the other day, I think it was even yesterday, I was struggling with the thing. And I texted him and said, hey bro, I'm struggling with my attitude right now. This is what happened, blah, 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 blah. And he goes, man, thanks so much for reaching out. I will be praying for you.
Yeah. No,
it was literally the best moment.
Yeah, man. I totally get that. So our goal is to have that kind of community. We've been talking about this for a year. Ever since this podcast started, it was a part of our vision is why are we doing this podcast? We want to build a community and talk about the things that we're going through as people who work in youth ministry. We want to share that with everybody else. Yeah. Well, this is our place where we can share those things. And you guys can share back with everybody else who's a part of this community in the future. That's what we're really excited about. Now, the group is not launched yet. It will be a private group. In the sense that you'll have to be approved to get in, so we want to make sure that we're not getting all spammed by bots and things like that.
Invite only. You got to make it sound important.
Yeah, it's invite only.
Yeah, so if you want to be a part of the VIP room.
I guess it would be discover only. You can find it, and then you have to be approved.
You have to approve it. So that will be available in the coming weeks. We're announcing it right now because we want you guys to get excited about it. We'll be talking about it on the podcast, and we'll let you know when it comes out.
And then we want you to invite other people to it.
Oh, please do. Yeah.
Like let's obviously you don't get to approve them coming in.
No, we'll have admins, and that's why we're introducing Caleb.
Yeah,
because Caleb will be leading our admin team for that group and working with Word of Life Youth Ministries. So if you guys have questions about the curriculum in the future, you're welcome to ask. If you don't want to talk about it at all, please. We want to just be a community for everybody to come together for this. So
the purpose of the site is not to just be a big commercial for Word of Life.
No.
You will have commercial aspects. We will talk about different things in the same way that we've talked about it on the show. But I think we've done it in a way that's saying, hey, here's a resource, here's a tool.
We also want it to be a sounding board for you to say, hey, these are things I wish we had or didn't, or things I don't like. Like we want that to be a talking point for you as well. So it's a both and for all these things.
Let me say this: the win in my head, the win for this group. Yeah. Because there's a lot of groups like this, similar to this. So what's different about this one? I think it's like what's different about the people who are listening right now to this podcast. There's something here, and I think what sets Word of Life. Obviously, I'm biased, but when it comes to helping churches with youth ministry, what sets us apart is Word of Life. You can bet on it every time. Not that you should bet, but if you were to bet, you could. That Word of Life is going to be deep, and we're gonna not just be fluff. It's not going to be shallow. And so I think if you're a youth pastor specifically or youth leader working in a youth ministry, and you want a deep and engaging ministry that engages your students and goes deep, I mean, this is a great place to do that and get that community. Again, it can be icebreaker stuff too. But to really have just a safe place to get outside encouragement.
But again, I want to see us, and I want y'all to understand, some of you are like, man, okay, so this is where I bow out because I'm not a youth leader. No, you are a part of this community.
Yeah, no, for sure.
There's so many of you that I talk to that you're like, man, I just listened to this as a parent who has teens. There's some of you that are like, I'm a grandparent, I'm a this, or I'm a young person that's like, I just like the podcast. That's awesome. We want you to be a part of this community. If all of us act and talk and think exactly the same, then it's not a community.
And I look forward to sharing, like we'll be sharing resources for people just like that, parents. You know, we're partnered with a great ministry called Access. They have amazing resources for parents with teenagers and children. So
so please join us.
It'll be a place of encouragement, of resource, and to your point, That's like way down bottom priority. It will not be just a Word of Life commercial. It's going to be a safe place for you to grow and be encouraged.
And you know what? For a limited time, if you use the promo code Kyle's Smarter Than Josh, you can get into the group absolutely for free.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about the price.
Yeah.
That's a joke. It's free.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
So thank you for joining us for announcements. This has been Stacking Chairs, talking about community. Guys, go out of your comfort zone. Go find that community that's within your region and then be a part of this community as well. But do both. Don't do just one or the other, please.
Hey guys, please pray for us. Remember to like, subscribe, to share, to comment, continue to talk.
Yeah.
Pray for this community. We are thinking that this could be an awesome next step to seeing this heartbeat just kind of taken to the next level.
It's been a part of our vision since the beginning. So.
Or Josh, maybe the best thing that they could share is how to more effectively stack those chairs.
Is that where you're cutting it?
That's how we always cut it.
Wait, dude, maybe when I get to hey guys, it's a recap. I'm like, next one.
Yeah.
I've never heard that.
Wow.
I've never heard you scream stack those chairs.
Because at the end of every episode.